Assalamu alaikum. In today's video we are looking at another brilliant game of Mikhail Tal which he played against a player named Leonov. In this game Mikhail Tal was playing as a white and he started the game with the e4, c6, Caro-Kann defense, d4, d5, e captures on d5, c captures on d5, and this is Caro-Kann exchange variation. In this position Mikhail Tal played bishop to d3, but why? If we look at the black light square bishop, the best squares for this bishop is bishop to f4 or bishop to g4. Because of the bishop to d3, Mikhail Tal is controlling this f5 square and this queen is guarding this g4 square. So that's why Mikhail Tal played bishop to d3, which stops the development of the opponent light square bishop. Black played knight to f6, again guarding this g4 square, but again Mikhail Tal guarded it with the h3 move, and now black cannot play this bishop to g4. Black played h6, bishop to f4, and after e6 this bishop looks like a bad piece. Mikhail Tal continued the game with the knight to f3, bishop to d6, offering the bishop exchange. Mikhail Tal accepts it. Bishop captures on d6, queen captures on d6, and now c3. c3 is a very important move. Let's say if you don't play c3 in this position, you play short castle, then black can play queen to b4, and now if you want to guard this b2 pawn, Mikhail Tal has to play queen to c1, which is a very passive move, and probably Mikhail Tal would not want to play it. That's why in this position he played c3. And now with the help of c3, whenever black play queen to b6, Mikhail Tal can play queen to e2 and guard this b2 pawn. And with the help of the queen on the e2 square, Mikhail Tal can easily play knight to e5. That's why to stop this knight to e5, black played knight to c6. At this position, both players short castle, and now Mikhail Tal played queen to e2. In this position, the best move for the black is to play queen to c7. And now if Mikhail Tal play knight to e5, then knight captures on e5, and after pawn captures on e5, black can continue the game with the knight to d7, and Mikhail Tal can play the f4 or rook to e1. Black can also continue the game with the f6 move. In this position, if you don't play queen to c7, Mikhail Tal can play knight to e5, and after knight captures, pawn capture, this pawn is attacking the queen and the knight at the same time. That's why queen to c7 is an important move, but black missed it and he played rook to e8. Mikhail Tal goes with the plan knight to e5. Obviously capturing this knight is not a good idea because of d captures on e5. Black now played queen to c7, but now it's too late because now Mikhail Tal played f4. The plan is simple. If you capture this knight, then f captures on e5, and Mikhail Tal has this semi-open file. Black again made the same mistake. He played knight captures on e5, f captures on e5, and now knight to h7. Mikhail Tal played queen to h5, making some pressure on the f7 square. So black guarded it with the rook to e7, and now knight to a3 with the simple plan of knight to b5, attacks the queen, gain a tempo, and then knight to d6. So black played a6, stops the knight to b5, but the best move was bishop to d7. Now Mikhail Tal cannot play knight to b5 or knight to c4. That's why he straight away played knight to c2, now planning to play knight to e3 and then knight to g4. Black played queen to d7, knight to e3, and now queen to e8. At this position, Mikhail Tal brilliantly sacrificed his full rook with the rook to f6. Such a brilliant move. But why it's a brilliant move? If we go back and let's say Mikhail Tal played some random move, then black can play f5. In this position, you cannot play the en passant move because your queen is hanging. That's why first queen captures on e8, rook captures on e8, and now because of this pawn structure, Mikhail Tal pieces look useless on the king side. That's why it's important for Mikhail Tal to stop this f5 move, and that's why he played rook to f6. And now let's see what happens if you capture it with the knight. If you capture it with the knight, then e captures on f6, G captures on f6, and now queen captures on h6. The threat is simple. Mikhail Tal would play knight to g4 and then knight captures on f6. And if you try to stop it with the f5, then Mikhail Tal can play a brilliant knight to g4. Why it's brilliant? Because if you capture the knight, then with the help of the bishop, Mikhail Tal can play queen to h7 check, king to f8, and then queen to h8 is a checkmate. And if you don't capture the knight, then knight to f6 is again a checkmate with the help of the queen. queen. That's why in this position capturing with the knight is not a good idea. Let's see what happens if you capture it with the pawn. If you play g captures on f6, then bishop captures on h7 check, king captures, and now knight to g4 threatening the queen captures on h6. To stop this, black can play queen to f8, but now rook to f1 with the simple plan of rook to f3 and rook to g3. And again this position is winning for Mikhail Tal. That's why in this position black didn't capture the rook. He played queen to f8 and Mikhail Tal retreats the rook with the rook to f4, bishop to d7, knight to g4, bishop to e8, and again Mikhail Tal brilliantly sacrificed his knight with the knight to f6 check. Black in this position played knight captures on f6, but let's see what happens if you capture it with the pawn. If you play g captures on f6, then rook to g4 check, king to h8, e captures on f6, bishop to b5, and now pawns captures, queen captures, bishop captures, pawn captures, and after rook to f1, Mikhail Tal is easily winning this position because of this massive attack, and he has the rook in the exchange for the knight. That's why in this position you cannot capture it with the pawn. Black played knight captures on f6, pawn captures on f6, he played rook to c7, saves his rook, f captures on g7. It's simple, you cannot capture it with the queen because of rook to g4 and Mikhail Tal will win the queen. That's why in this position black played king captures on g7, and now Mikhail Tal gives the final blow with the queen to e5 check, and at this position black resigned. The reason is simple, if you play king to g8, then after rook to g4 check, it's forced to play queen to g7, and then queen captures on g7 is a checkmate. So let's say in this position you don't play king to g8, you play f6, but now queen captures on c7, bishop to f7, and after rook to f1. Again this position is winning for Mikhail Tal because of this extra rook, and that is the reason why black resigned in this game. So I hope you like this brilliant game of Mikhail Tal, and if you like it, please like this video, subscribe to this channel to get more amazing and inspiring content.